Welcome back, listeners, to another segment of Go Be Wyoming. This is our local news segment, so Sheridan and Johnson County. This is brought to you by Alpha Graphics. They can do any of your print needs, paper needs, marketing needs here in Sheridan. On this one today, we're obviously going to cover a lot of the local elections, kind of the results. I don't think there's really that big a surprises, Zach, in our local stuff. And then we are going to cover, coming up the Sheridan football team, and that's really about it. So let's get right into it, Zach.
Let's do it.
First one, this was interesting, and it's kind of died out. I'm glad we're going to talk about this. This will probably be an interesting topic, probably at the state legislation. The idea of how do you pay city attorneys or county attorneys? This was done by the Sheridan Press, and it was kind of fascinating that, depending on where you are, a city attorney could get paid more than multiple county attorneys or vice versa. Zach, what was your take? I mean, this was a while ago. This was probably early last week.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
It was interesting. It was fascinating to see just how weird the structure is for pay for city attorneys. We were looking, the Sheridan Press obviously is looking at Diana Bennett, who's the city attorney for Sheridan. Mm-hmm. And it said her salary is coming in just shy of $90,000, I think.
Yep.
But the deputy city attorney, so the position below her, Mr. LaRosa, comes in over 90,000, or he's probably even closer to 100,000, I think.
Well, he's the county, isn't he, though?
Oh, maybe he's county.
But still,
Yeah. They did bring up, though, that there are, in some state or some counties, there are attorneys who are, below the city attorney who are making more.
Yeah.
It does bring up a good question of, what is a reasonable amount of pay for a city attorney? You and I don't like seeing money being wasted. But I think, an important thing to look at is, private practice attorney is going to be making close to $200,000+ a year. So obviously you're going to take a pay cut going into the city. What does that mean then for your city attorney? Is that they're maybe less experienced, right? They're trying to just get some years under their belt. And as a result, that might mean you have a lesser attorney, coming into the courtroom. So I think, we really need to look at the structure. How is, pay doled out? How do you negotiate a pay raise? Where is a nice, comfortable price, that people are comfortable with, that gets you a quality city attorney to fill that position?
Right. And one solution I'm thinking of right away, especially for the smaller counties, smaller communities, is you might have to mix them together. You're not gonna. It's either one or the other, and then or another structure could be you don't really have one sitting there. You could have one on retainer. A private attorney. That gets a little weird, in conflict of interest and things like that. So kind of an interesting thing to keep our eye on to see if that's something maybe the state looks at, budget wise. I think counties and cities, I think, might have to take a look at it. I think it's
right.
Something to consider. Zach, other than that, I guess let's touch on the football first, and then we'll do the whole election thing. Sheridan High School, they won their game against Rock Springs. They will be, so I think I got this wrong on our last one, Zach. So they're actually, Cheyenne East is on this side.
Okay.
And so anyways, so Sheridan will be going down to Cheyenne East for the semifinals. This is, I'd have to go look, but I think this is either 13th or 12th year straight that they're in, Sheridan's in the quarterfinals or semifinals. So good long stretch, shout out to the Bronx. Hopefully they keep it going. And Zach, we had mentioned, what are they doing for state? Because next week UW is playing at home. I didn't know this. Someone was like, oh, well, the high school association made it whoever the high seed is, then it's
Yeah.
at home. So I'm looking back, I was like, man, those 3 losses then really hurt us, because you want to talk about an opportunity to have a state championship at home. It's like, man, missed out on that opportunity. But, Thunder Basin is still on the other side. So, some people are like, let's hope for them to win, because then we get to go over there. Or I think, well, we seeded higher than them, so they'd come. Anyway, so it's all weird now, because now it's kind of like you're win and all that stuff. But
right.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
All right, let's get into the nitty gritty here.
All right.
No, I don't think this is really a surprise, Zach. The mayor race, Rich Bridger came away unofficially over 1,200 votes over incumbent Roger Miller. I think it goes without saying. I don't know what Roger Miller kind of imploded. I don't know that email. If you haven't seen it, it's on the Sheridan Press and Sheridan Media. I don't understand what his thought process was there. And I've talked to many business owners, because it really attacked business owners. Mm-hmm. Someone made a good point. They're like, that was sent at 1 a.m. Like, you probably should have sent that to like a different email of yours and like read it. And then so it's like, man, what? I don't know. Anyway, but what's your reaction, Zach? That's quite a bit larger margin than the primary.
Yeah, no, for sure. That email definitely, I think, is what put the nail in the coffin. To be sure. Again, it attacked businesses. It made some claims towards businesses that I'll tell you weren't true.
Yeah.
It going out and labeling a portion of your electorate cronies, probably not a good call.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens after midnight.
Yeah.
Sit on it, think about it, wait. I think he maybe saw some writing on the wall a little bit. I think he realized it's not necessarily going the way he's thinking. So, it. I don't know.
Yeah.
He did. There was just a couple days before the election, I think he tied himself up.
Yeah. That could be true. Is this weird timing? Like, I just not sure what was going on in his head there about that. Anyway, so Rich Bridger wins. City Council, this I thought was a little odd, because it didn't go the way the primaries went. So Stephen Brantz, Kristen Jennings, those were the 2 front runners. They were the front runners in the primaries, so nothing new there. I'm not going to call this an underdog, because they were all kind of the same in the primaries, but Sean Day wins that 3rd spot, barely beat Spencer Gazzara by about 100 votes. He beat Tom Kelly by 200. But, my big thing was in the primaries, he was almost 6th. He was tied for 5th. So something happened, and he got another 200-ish votes to get him over the top. What's your thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, I'm surprised by this. I really didn't expect Sean Day to kind of come back this way. I guess I really just listening and to all the candidates talk. I really liked what Spencer had to say. Really liked what Tom had to say, and so I am surprised by it.
And we're not trying to, we haven't had Sean on. I run into Sean at the gym. He's a nice guy, and not taking that away from him. And he's a local guy. He's been here for a while. Because he missed one of the forums, so he wasn't there to speak. And then, when we're doing apples to apples, right? We've seen Spencer speak. We've had Tom speak.
Yep.
So anyways, it's kind of interesting. We'll see how he does.
It is interesting. I do want to point out about that too. Stephen Brantz has had some experience on the city council before too.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have somebody who's going to be coming back,
right,
who just has that experience and that knowledge. So
yep. And Kristen, I feel she's very experienced in the workings of local government. So she, with a big field, I think maybe it's what goes without saying that you might have a Sean Day, a newcomer, and we'll see how that goes. So school board, I don't think there was a big like surprise here either. Mary Evers, Ed Fessler, Shane Rader, Wayne Schatz, and Dana Wyatt, sorry. They were all leading in the primaries, so nothing new there. We've talked about it. It's super important that we know who these people are, because that's your school board, right? These guys are going to have to make decisions in regards to the budget coming up when the state comes down with budgets. Yeah, that's who makes those decisions. And I should say, because we didn't put anyone else in here, but this is School District 2, so this is Sheridan. Yeah. I feel comfortable with all those board members. Ed Fessler was an educator. Zach, any thoughts on any of those people there?
Yeah, there's a lot of educators on there on the board. Mary Evers, Ed Fessler, Dana Wyatt. So I do like that, especially like you said, the budget. They're going to have to look at some cuts, and so having people who know just how much that's going to affect them, being able to have an advocate and be able to look at both sides of the coin is really nice.
Yep. Yeah, so that's good. I think that was a very good, really it was a good field for the 5 positions.
Yeah.
County commissioners, I mean, really it was just these two running, Ringley and Wright.
Yeah, we pretty much decided really in the primary.
Yeah, so this is super fascinating. Yeah. So we've talked about it before. Judge Edelman, he's one of the 2 judges in this district of Sheridan and Johnson County. Zach, you did a good job and went through, well, what did it break down between the 2 counties? So Sheridan County actually was fairly close,
pretty close,
within about 1,000 votes. Johnson County was a little more, obviously they had about 600 of not retaining Judge Edelman. But then when you put them together, he was retained by about 600 votes due to the adding the numbers together. What's your initial thoughts there, Zach?
I am surprised. I mean, if you listeners will remember when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, the Wyoming Bar Association endorsed every judge except for Judge Edelman. His polling numbers were just very low.
Yeah.
So I was surprised by this, to be honest. I did think it would be quite a bit more no's. So hopefully Judge Edelman is seeing the results here and is maybe going to change the way he goes about his courtroom procedures. So, but yeah, we have in Sheridan County 9,971 yeses to 8,758 no's. Johnson County 1,900 yeses to 2,500 no's. And so that boils down to 11,884 yes votes to retain Judge Edelman and 11,260 no votes to not retain him.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see when this comes back up again. I will reiterate, Zach, I feel like you and I have done a really good job about this was on the ballot. Like this was going to be, and if you're a first time voter, I understand, it's weird and you're not sure what's going on. And especially these ones, because there are quite a few judges on here, the retention and whatever, and the question is weird. This, and I feel like that 600 votes was probably, people that maybe didn't know what was going on, and they're like, retain him, and right. So anyways, but I think you're right. Let's see what Edelman does this next go around and see if he maybe tries to redeem himself in his decision making. Other than that, Zach, just locally, I want to say to the listeners, the Christmas stroll's coming up, holiday season's coming up. Shop local. Try and go shop local. Do all your gift shopping in town if you can, or just Wyoming businesses. Everyone's struggling, and the year's not done yet. Regardless of what happens nationally and all that stuff, but I just want to kind of plug that in here since we're on the local news. Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, no, I do want to say we got some big things coming up. The Christmas stroll. Christmas stroll's running all day, so go on down. Support your local businesses, and I think we're going to be okay. Let's keep riding this out.
Absolutely, yeah. Just stay strong with it. Keep going. We're all right, and support local businesses. And that's all we have. That's your Sheridan and Johnson County news. Welcome back, listeners, to another segment of Go Be Wyoming. This is our energy and agriculture segment. This is brought to you by Land Resources USA out here in Sheridan. Zach, we've got some, topics we've talked about before. I was talking to somebody. They're a fan of our show and they listen to our segments, and they really do appreciate us covering kind of energy and ag and trying to be in it just informative as best we can, right? Because not a lot of people know the industry or agriculture or what's going on in the state. So let's jump right into this. I'll talk about this wind farm, Zach, and then we'll kind of maybe popcorn back and forth here.
Sure.
So outside the University of Wyoming, there's what's called the Cedar Springs Wind Farm that's going in. This is being conducted by Next Era energy company, whatever. They're a big utility company. I want to talk about this farm first. So what it is it's a cooperation between Next Era, obviously, because they're going to put in the turbines and all that stuff, connect the utilities. It's 9H Ranch. 9H Ranch is outside Laramie, and then the University of Wyoming. So you've got a triangle partnership here. I just want to throw numbers out to people because we've talked about this before. So this whole project is going to cost really the university and Next Era. From what I'm gathering, 9H Ranch is just lucking out. They're getting a wind farm and then they get power. So, which to me, I'm like, yeah, I'd do that deal. It's going to cost the university and Next Era $600 million. And I couldn't see in the article, Zach, I don't know if you've got to pull it up. They say it's going to make 400 megawatts of power. And I was like, is that in a year? Is that their estimate for a year? I'm going to guess so, because I don't think a wind farm can generate that in a month. I'm guessing it's a year. Mm-hmm. It has to be. The reason I bring this up is because two things out of the article is the University of Wyoming's Energy Resource Program, this is where it's coming from, is the energy department. They pretty much were like, we're doing this so we can study wind power. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, can we be more specific? Like, what are we studying about wind power? So that was my number one gripe with the article. And really it's more on the reporting of like asking a better question to whoever they're talking to from the department at the university is like, what are we studying? So I'm like, hold on, we're spending $600 million to quote unquote study. So I'm like, I'm a little nervous. Also, we've talked about the Manhattan Institute study a couple episodes back about investing in, a natural gas well versus any sort of renewable wind or solar. I did the math. I had to do this math all over again, Zach. If we gave somebody $600 million to invest in natural gas production, that would give us 180 trillion megawatts of energy. So that's why I'm like, the 400 megawatts has to be a year, right? I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. That has to be a year. So really, I'm just calling on the university, like, hey, can you clarify, like, what are we studying? Like, if it's something like brand new, like crazy utility transfer, whatever, like, okay, then I'm like, you can sell me on it.
Yeah.
If not, good job by 9H Ranch for negotiating that and getting free power. First off, nice job on that. But we've talked about this before about renewables. Like, I'm all for, like, right? I just said 9H, like, good for you for getting free power, man. Way to work that deal out. But when we go apples to apples with natural gas or coal or oil, it doesn't compare. Like, you just cannot. 180 trillion megawatts to 400 megawatts. Like,
right.
And that's like an asterisk, right? Because wind power is dependent on wind. So it's like, I don't know, now Wyoming's super windy, but
yeah. No, I think you're totally right. $600 million to set this up. And we talked about this last week. 9H really doesn't have any stake in the game. It's just like, yeah, sure, here, and then they get the free power. It's
other than the land, but wind farms aren't that bad agriculturally because they're just towers. Now, there is safety hazard when ice falls off them and stuff could hit livestock. But I imagine they've got that safety net. Like, if you kill one of my heifers, you're paying for it, which is like, again, it's like, man, this guy's winning. Like, that's what a sick deal for this guy.
I don't know. At the same time, if you're driving from Casper, taking the back way through Medicine Bow and down into Laramie, what do you see the whole way? It's just wind turbine after wind turbine. If you want to study wind, there you go.
Yeah.
Why does it, make a deal with somewhere where it already exists? Yeah.
And like I said, like, who knows? Maybe the Department of Energy from the university will tell us what they're studying, right? And that's some new thing, and I'll be cool with that. Like, yeah, all right.
Right.
But like, it's straight up, they're just like, we're just to study it. And I'm like, okay, well, like you just said, like, Medicine Bow has hundreds of wind turbines.
Yeah. We've been studying wind for a while now.
Anyway, so it's cool. I mean, like I said, I think it's a cool, this is the University of Wyoming being innovative. They're in all fields. They're in wind, solar, natural gas. So I like that. Next thing, we'll see. The BLM still needs to prove this, and depending what's going on nationally, who knows what will happen with this. We've talked about this before. There's an initiative there that we're trying to do some big natural gas, pipeline corridors, right, to supply other states, to supply Wyoming with natural gas and CO2, some carbon capture, right? This was last week, probably Friday. The BLM sent that article. They made the announcement that they were going to consider it. I would imagine this is on hold. This would be good for Wyoming. It would create some jobs. It'd be good for our natural gas industry. But this we'll have to wait and see, though.
Yeah, no, for sure. It sounds cool, though. I mean, it sounds promising, and would definitely benefit Wyoming big time.
Mm-hmm.
CO2 pipeline. So, yeah, I mean, we'll have to keep an eye on this to just see the further developments of it, and see where it goes. I can only imagine stories that we're going to see come
Yeah.
out once it's underway. So
Yeah, yeah. Especially because it's on BLM. Most of it would be on BLM land, or what? Well, it might not be all on BLM land, but the BLM will be involved, anyways.
yeah,
I'm going to jump to this one because we were just talking about the University of Wyoming. The Department of Energy celebrates, the University of Wyoming's energy department, especially in regards to coal innovation. The carbon capture, technology to use coal. We were just talking about it, right? I do applaud the university. They look into anything energy. They're not just focused on one thing. So there's that.
yeah. No, that is cool to see. I think that talked about a bunch of different kind of projects and partnerships that are being looked at, right?
Yep.
Um, so, and it's centered around fossil energy. So, yeah, I think that's great. Let's not throw everything out the window. Let's
Yep.
keep looking and innovating. Let that free market drive investment and ideas.
Absolutely. And in talking, free market, Orion Mine, I thought this was just a cool story. I think they're fully invested into what they purchased from Occidental. So Orion Mine, they sent some representatives, and it sounds like top executives went down to Sweetwater County, which is where most of the Trona minerals deposits are. So that was a cool story to hear that they are serious. They want to know what the people of Sweetwater County want to see. There were land concerns, what things like that. So I think that was just a cool little feel good story about they're serious. They want to in good faith try and develop what they just purchased from Occidental.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's awesome to see. We've been looking at, how viable is it? How much can it actually produce? And so it's cool to see that this company's really interested. I mean, they should be. They just bought 5 million acres for a very big price tag. So I would hope to see that they are invested in this and taking it seriously. But it's good news. It's good
Yep.
news for sure.
Yeah. Um, well, let's do this one. So there are two bills right now. We'll see. Everything's hinging on a lot of stuff right now. I'm kind of curious. I don't know where I stand on this. So essentially, there are two bills in the U.S. Senate that they are trying to address the orphan well issue, quote unquote. Obviously, this would be on BLM lands, so this would be on federal lands. The article wasn't very clear on how the bills wanted the figures they were coming up with. So just for background, right now, an orphan well, if I were to lease federal property and drill a well, my bond, right, we've talked about this, and we talked with Pete Overmuller.
Yeah.
So the bond right now sits at $10,000 for one well. I do think that's probably a little low. I think that probably does need to be increased, and that's what one of the bills addresses. However, the range went from 75,000 all the way to 200,000. So I'm like, well, hold on, like what? Need to narrow that down, I think. And
Yeah.
And it's quite a big jump. 10,000 to 75,000 is a big jump, and then to 200,000 is a big jump. So that's why I'm not too sure where I stand on this. Obviously, this bill would get cut up and debated about. But Zach, what's your initial thought? Because it is BLM land, so I can see where that's important, right? Because the state of Wyoming take cares of the fee, and then the state. They really don't have a whole lot of say on BLM orphan wells.
Yeah, I think to echo what you said, really narrowing down that price, that's a broad range. I'd like to hear what our senators have to say. This report does say that they haven't had a chance to look at it yet,
Mm-hmm.
and so definitely want to keep an eye out to hear what they have to say. I think it's interesting. It's being introduced by a senator from Colorado. And last night watching the election news, Colorado went very blue. So it just was kind of surprising to me to see this. But yeah, and as we've talked about, there's it's good they're trying to get jobs, get the oil workers back, and get them some sort of work. And so we've talked with, like you said, with Pete about orphan wells, and I think really letting the state and individual companies have a lot of that control is what we want to see, obviously. Um, but yeah, um,
Well, and one thing this article and that no, and we should probably go look and try and see if we can figure this out. Which I don't know if you can. The BLM is a tough agency to get information from. I'm curious how many federal orphan wells are there? Are there, like, is there a lot? Like what, you know?
it does say, where was this? As of, I mean, this was a year ago. The number they had was 2,324 wells. Um,
Hmm.
and then of those, only 520, 530 have been remediated or removed from the list. So um, just under 2,000, it looks like.
See, because remember, Wyoming has roughly about 2,000, and we're about
Yeah,
to we'll probably plug about 1,000 of them. Which this senator is probably saying, like, hey, that 10,000 is not enough money to go do it.
yeah,
Okay, it'll be interesting. That's interesting because that, to me, that's not that many.
right. Yeah,
If we're
and
thinking
maybe
nationally.
maybe I'm maybe they're talking about Colorado alone. In that, I'm not
Sure.
exactly sure.
Well, anyways, it's something that we'll keep an eye on. Especially from a federal level, that would affect a lot of activity in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Um, Last thing, Zach, the PAW, Petroleum Association in Wyoming, they released a report, pretty much kind of like, regardless of what happens nationally, oil, natural gas, coal, and Trona. So even we talked about Orion Mine, even Trona, who they've got some investment, they need to start moving. Wyoming especially, we're not going to see any recovery in a lot of those industries until 2022. So it's looking pretty grim for 2021. Obviously, it'll steadily recover, but full recovery is not expected till 2022. The report was great. Again, friend of the show, Pete, does address, like, yeah, I mean, in regards to the budget, right? You've got 2 years where we don't really have anything to lean on. So there's going to have to be some diversification. You and I have kind of talked about, some conservatives are going to have to kind of bite the bullet and say, hey, we got to get funding somewhere, i.e. taxes of some sort, unless the ultra conservatives can cut 400 million plus out of the budget, which I just don't see happening. So just an interesting report, so yeah.
Yeah. It's like we've been saying. I think this is a little bit grimmer than we were hoping for. Just how long it's going to take to get some sort of resurgence, or some sort of, I don't even know if we can call it normalcy. But yeah, I think, like you said, we talked about a couple weeks ago, I would absolutely loathe the idea of an income tax, but some sort of tax might have to be discussed.
Yep.
Let's discuss it at least.
Yeah. I think we're just gonna have to.
Yeah.
One last thing on this too is so we brought up the numbers again in regards to that wind farm, and we're talking about taxes in our budget cut, and this report from PAW about, hey, it's going to be a while for these industries to recover. And a lot of people are going to say, hey, well, diversify, get into renewables. There's no company out there. So Next Era Energy, I looked them up. They have over billions of dollars in federal subsidies. Okay. And then, so they're getting in a partnership here with 600 million, and we're not even scratching the surface of what a natural gas field would make. Okay. I don't think people realize, like I said, we've said this before. I'm all for renewable. Okay. If you can give me energy, you can give me energy. The problem I have is people are not admitting the fact that all these federal subsidies come from something, from some GDP, from some taxes. You have to admit then it comes from fossil fuels. If you're going to end fossil fuels, well, then we got to get these subsidies for these renewable companies from somewhere. Okay. And I guess we're getting a little broad here, but anyways, our state legislature is going to have their work cut out for them, because I know there's going to be a push. People they're going to jump on the renewable train and say, oh, well, we should just do this. Well, that's all fine and dandy when you're getting those federal subsidies. What happens when those federal subsidies run out, and then now the consumer is stuck with, whoever it is, Next Era, and not to say like Next Era is evil or anything, but they're a business. If I can bank on $100 million a year from the federal government, then yeah, that sounds good. But once that ends, someone's going to pay for it. Yeah. And it's going to be the consumer. So I'm just trying to paint the clearest picture energy wise for people out there. So anyways, yeah. Anything else on the energy side there, Zach?
I don't. Nope. There's some cool things, there's some interesting things, but it's still all that, there's that underlying, fact that it's not going to be what it was. So
yep,
we've got to keep that in mind.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm perfectly okay with saying that, and that's okay. It's just as long as we know the facts.
Yeah.
Well, that is it. That was your energy and agriculture for this week. Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Go Be Wyoming. This is our state news segment. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. We've got Jay-Z, Jackson Hole. We do a election recap. Obviously, COVID. So, Zach, let's get right into this one. I think this is cool. Well, we've been seeing it all year, especially since the primaries. But Wyoming has seen probably the highest political campaign funding it's ever seen, which I would bet the nation has probably seen that as well.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, I think that is probably a trend across the board, just in terms of campaign spending.
Yep. And we've already talked about kind of like, Joanne True, got censored by the GOP, the Wyoming gun owners, which that has died. I feel like they probably won that little argument with their response, because I haven't seen anything in response to that from the Secretary of State. So anyways, not a surprise to anyone. A lot of spending going on.
Yeah. In the large scheme of things, it's probably still the least amount when you look at all the states.
Right.
I think they mentioned it was like 1.9 million. I'll tell you, up here in Montana, the Steve Daines, Steve Bullock campaigns alone, just for that one House or Senate seat, spent a collective $160 million.
Oh.
Yeah. So you couldn't shake a stick without seeing a Steve Daines or Steve Bullock ad up here.
Right.
Yeah. But again, we've talked about this, especially in previous elections. There has been, people very concerned about money coming into Wyoming politics.
Yeah.
And so Liz Cheney has talked about looking at financials of political groups, environmentalist, conservative groups. And I think we need to keep an eye on this. I think if we can get 1.9 million is okay. It's not 160 million for one race. So
Right.
I think we need to keep it anywhere, before getting to that point.
Totally. Yeah, and what Zach is painting a picture for us Wyomingites is it's we're not like Montana, so we're doing okay.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Some cool news. It sounds like Luke Combs was outside of Cody. I mean, man, Cody's gonna blow up. They're gonna be the next Jackson. It's probably already happening. But he got a nice little goat, nice little antelope in his hunt there outside of Cody.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so he was showing that. So just kind of like to give him a shout out. That was nice.
That's cool. He's with Steven Ranella too, of the Meat Eater group. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If I think they've got a podcast. I know they've got a Netflix show too.
Yep.
But that's pretty cool.
That Meat Eater, I think he's even been on this side of the mountain too, out kind of near Sheridan. He's done a couple. So pretty cool. This is funny because we freaking were talking about this, Zach, and then Montana just passed recreational cannabis or marijuana, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
So Jay-Z he must have a stake in a marijuana company. So he's putting up billboards, on the interstate there between Colorado and Wyoming. We've talked about it, Zach. Wyoming's getting into a spot where it's like we got to get with the times at some point, or we got to do something different. Like, I don't know. I have no opinion, but it's just kind of like,
it's funny. The billboards going into Wyoming are going to be, they're going to say, what is it? Here, cannabis is illegal. Avoid the bookings. Going into Colorado, it's going to say, here, cannabis is legal. Enjoy responsibly. So, I wonder how long it'll be before we see those on I-90 going into Billings. But
yep.
Well, I mean, like you said, Montana passed it yesterday. I need to look and see, because they talked about they were going to start a lawsuit right away if it did pass. And then South Dakota just legalized it too. So it's starting to close in.
Well, and I just think, like Wyoming, like we're going to be in a weird spot now because with South Dakota, Montana, Colorado, it's like I think with marijuana in particular, it's this kind of like you're losing a fight you're not going to win. And you're going to waste money on something that realistically, when we look at justice and justice reform, is like, is this really what we want to be, hounding? Not to say that it's not a good thing, but it's just kind of like, is this where we need to focus our justice reform on? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, I think you know what I'm talking about. It's when you've got 3 points of entry, it's kind of like, at this point, it's like, just, I don't know. Anyways, get it controlled.
I agree.
Get it controlled by the state, make tax money off it. Boom, easy.
Yep.
I mean, come on. It's like, it's not that hard, guys. It's not rocket science.
Right.
Anyway, so it's kind of funny. I think it's funny. Just the signs, I think, is just hilarious.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. We've talked about it. So it's kind of like, Wyoming, they need to consider it. All right. I'm going to try and breeze through this, Zach. I hate talking about it. I think everyone's done talking about it. COVID. As of today, so we are recording this November 4th. As of today, Wyoming is at 93 deaths, still under 100. Our confirmed cases are up to 12,000 with 2,000 probable. If you're keeping track, that was 6 new deaths in about 5 days, but with about almost 3,000 new cases. So do the math on that. I found this interesting on the Wyoming Department of Health. So their number of people tested is 130,000, but the total of administered tests was about 264,000. And then they said that number, they don't have negative tests. because private companies don't have to tell the Department of Health if it was negative. But anyways, I'm just confused because I'm like, well, the only way I got tested was through the Department of Health. So,
Yeah.
and I understand there's people that probably did their own private testing, but anyway, I don't know. Just the numbers that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
However, let's go through these. The percent of what's it called? The spread. What's that called? Spread rate. Right.
Contagions. Infection.
There, the infection rate. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
The last couple weeks, actually, in Wyoming, even though our cases are going up, our contagion rate, infection rate is actually flat. Has been flat, or I should say, has been flat, and is actually going down, which is wild. And then some other facts. 90% of the deaths are people over the age of 60. About 80%, 76% of them have pre-existing conditions. Zach, we talked about this last week. 20% of these deaths were not hospitalized. And then 47% have been hospitalized. So if you're doing your math, you're like, hold on, that's a percentage. We're leaving out a percentage of the deaths, which we've talked about. Well, for some reason, we're counting in Wyoming, even though they died somewhere else and they were living somewhere else, and or they were in an elderly home.
Right.
So, kind of just some facts for you to know kind of where we're at and how we're dealing with it. I will say, when I went and voted yesterday, because Sheridan, we have like no mandate or anything like that. Everyone in line to vote was wearing a mask. Everybody stayed 6 feet apart. They didn't have any markers on the ground. And then everyone was happy, cheerful, saying howdy, good morning, so people are taking care of themselves. People are responsible. So Uncle Sam, if you're listening, people can fend for themselves. So other than that, just some couple other things. We've talked about this. The at-home saliva testing is available. A Wyoming-based firm is helping do that, and they're helping the the health department do contact tracing, especially with the spike of cases. No surprise, the governor last week extended existing health orders for another 2 weeks. I think that's perfectly fine. We're seeing a spike. You got to keep doing what we're doing. No surprise here, Laramie County. They started Monday with a mask mandate. That's it. My 2 cents with it, Zach, and I'll let you jump in, is I think we're doing a good job. I think the most important factors are, our death rate, the infection rate, right? And then like in serious infections, cases are going up, but infection rate is low and dropping. The death rate is flattening. I think, like the governor, we're going to go another 2 weeks. We're not going to jump into a haste here. Right. So he's given no ground. He's doing great. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I think, like you said, people in Wyoming are taking it seriously. We've been taking it seriously. We are deciding for ourselves the best measures to take. And then again, I think let's just keep going about this. Let's, get the information in. Let the 2 weeks pass. Let's just keep seeing day by day how it's going. Like you said, there's hope on the horizon. We just got to keep going. So.
Yeah, you can take what you will from the information that we just provided to you, and you can make your own opinion. Moving on, we got some cool stuff. This is cool. So Jackson Hole, Teton County, they have some proposals in with the State Land Trust. They have quite a few different things, which we kind of just talked about. Cody, Cody's right next, in this Teton County area. I think we're going to see a lot of growth out there: commercial, agriculture, conservation. Um, you can find this. You can find this report on lands.wyo.gov. Look under Teton County, and you can see what they're proposing. Honestly, it's a big mix of everything. They've got commercial, agriculture, conservation, rangeland, hunting. I mean, it's a big proposal. Um, and we're mentioning this because even though it's Teton County, if you're in Sheridan, Sheridan County can do this with the state lands trust. So it's kind of like you got to be paying attention to what's going on with your state lands. Yeah. Anything to add on that, Zach?
No, I think that's cool to see. It doesn't surprise me either that it's the Jackson Hole Teton area either. You've got skiing and stuff out there, and like you said, hunting and some great fishing. So, yeah, I think the rest of the state needs to be, we're not all set against each other. We can, take a look and see what's working for everybody else.
Right. Yeah. And so just stay up to date with that stuff. All right, we're getting close to the end here. So, Dan Zonsterzer, I'm probably butchering that. He's a House representative for Wyoming, and he's openly gay. He has served quite a few terms, so it's pretty cool. This was an article done by NBC News. And I applaud them that yes, he is openly gay in a very red state. We've talked about this though, is I really don't care if he's gay. I look at his track record. He's very pro Second Amendment, and kind of some other things like that. So I mean, that's why he's a Republican and he's held his seat. I will say the NBC article mentioned that we're going to have a $1 billion shortfall in the deficit. They kind of rounded that a little, so I don't like it. I mean, they're a national company, so that's fine. But my big thing is, for people listening outside Wyoming, is like, don't be surprised that we have gay people here. Like, I know everyone wants to talk about like Matthew Shepard and all that stuff. It's like, no, like really, we just care about what's his voting record. How's he voted? What's he vote for? So, anyways, I thought it was just a cool article, giving him kind of a platform to mention that he's openly gay for our state government and he's a Republican.
Yeah, no, I think that's cool. Like you said, it's the whole identity politics thing. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me. I want to know where your stance is on the policy. I think another cool thing to point out too, you mentioned Matthew Shepard, and it's like one of his big things is fighting kind of anti-LGBT legislation, and he hasn't faced any hard flack or backlash from his colleagues. It's actually generally been welcomed and received. And I think they mentioned because of him, there hasn't been any sort of anti-LGBT legislation that's been passed. So again, don't be surprised that there are gay people who don't fit the maybe Wyoming mold, that you have created for all of us.
No, that's a good point. I forgot about that. He leads the fight anytime that there's anti-LGBTQ legislation, which I support, because I don't think it's the government's job to say one way or the other. As long as it's equal opportunity and that's fine. So yeah, it was a cool article. I thought it was just a good little plug for him in Wyoming. Before we get into the statewide election recap, we've got a couple districts and Senate districts that we cover. Kraken Bank, they started a trend. A new crypto bank, Avanti, I think I'm saying that right. They have filed to put a charter here in Wyoming. I just put in jokingly in our notes, don't move to Cheyenne. They're probably moving to Cheyenne, but come to Sheridan.
Yeah.
It's prettier.
Yeah, it is. There's less traffic here. It's fun.
Or go to Cody. Kanye's up there. I don't know.
Sure.
Please, stop going to Cheyenne.
Yeah.
But anyways,
No, that's cool. It's exciting too.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we were just talking about on the energy agriculture. We're gonna have to diversify. There you go. Crypto bank. Some tech industry.
Yep.
Okay. Election recap. Zach, if there's anyone that you thought interesting, go for it. But these were the ones I pulled from Cowboy State Daily that said that these are kind of interesting ones to watch. And we'll just jump right into it. So Senate District number 6, so that's Cheyenne. Bouchard, he's a Republican. He won by about 3,000 votes. They were thinking there in Laramie County that he could be pushed to get flipped. 3,000 votes, I think that's a pretty good good lead. Other Republicans in Laramie County swept down there. So kind of interesting to see how that goes with new people moving into Cheyenne and so we'll kind of see how that goes. This one was super close. House District 11. This is in Laramie, so probably Albany County. So Olson, he had flipped it last time from a Democrat, and he was able to hold his seat now. And this was close, 300 votes. So he was able to hold off there. And I'll take this last one here, Zach. House District 45. Prozenza, she is a Democrat out in Lander. She won her district by under 200 votes. So that was a close one. She had a close race. And Zach, I'll let you take District 55 and District 60.
Sure. Yeah, so House District 50, another very close race. This is in Fremont County. Oakley, Republican, won by 32 votes. And then House District 60, which is Sweetwater County, Mark Baker, Republican, with 1,500 votes, won. And you've got to know here, there were 2 other seats that were flipped in Sweetwater that went back to Republicans. So
yeah, I think just overall, it sounds like the Republicans had a good day in their House districts, especially in flipping some seats and then holding on to some seats. But there's some close, 32 votes. That's a slim margin that is. 200 votes even is a slim margin. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So, anything else, Zach, that you want to mention state-wise?
No, I think, these are some close races here. I think, we were maybe expecting a little bit of we were expecting Cheyenne maybe to go blue a little bit. And so, pleasantly surprised to see that they stayed red and elected some Republicans. I think, understanding that we're coming into a difficult fiscal year, I think has probably helped some Republicans kind of hold their seats or take some. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something to just keep an eye on, with people moving out from cities, seeing, are they going to change, are they going to change our districts blue or whatnot? But yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, good showing for the Republican Party, I think, of the state of Wyoming. And that's all we have for state news. Bing, bada, boom.
Cool.